it'll go live, and then we have.
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so I've started the recording, and Nivedita ma'am, you can start. All the best.
Great. Thank you so much, Vishnu. Welcome one and all, and greetings for the day. Thanks for joining in to the 6th session of Go Weekly. Today's forum will discuss about precautions and care required post-COVID. This session will be recorded and will be available later on YouTube and Facebook page. You can search for our sessions on Facebook page, and don't forget to tag Bitosa Global as you share it with your friends. The YouTube channel is also named as Bitosa Global, and you can subscribe to it if you haven't already done that. We will be taking up your questions at the end of this session. Please feel free to type in your queries or questions in the chat section of the Zoom session, along with your name and badge. By the way of introduction, I'm Nivedita Saxena from Information Technology 2K2 batch, and I work with Affinity Solutions in San Jose, California. As you already know about Bitosa Global, which is a group of BIT alumni for our own BITians. Our subgroups have been working on different agendas towards a unified cause of helping fellow BITians and mankind during these COVID times. One of such initiatives is DocOPD, which is led by our own BITians. I take honor in introducing Ayush Agrawal from 1986 batch. He is Vice President of Bitosa NCR chapter and is working with Abhishek Kumar associated with DocOPD. Handing over to you, Ayush, sir.
Thanks a lot, Nivedita, for the generous introductions and for telling the audience about what Bitosa is and what we are doing with DocOPD. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everybody, because we have audience from all over the world. I take this occasion to welcome all of you for this session. A little bit of what Bitosa Global, I'll just add on to what Nivedita has already informed. We are a group of about 25,000 plus alumni registered with Bitosa Global, and we are spread over 44 countries. So the total number of alumni is above 150,000 right now, as of now. And this small effort of helping our alumni during this COVID time started about a month back. Exact date was April 30th, when we all got together and we started this activity. We have doctored now more than 250 volunteers, and we have covered more than 78 cities in India, providing different kind of support through our COVID and COVID care programs, right? So these programs are ranging from providing oxygen care, providing plasmas, providing medicines, getting them telemedication consultancy, getting them even RT-PCR tests. So all these things is what we are providing as a part of our alumni community. I take this pleasure, not taking too much of time and not standing between you and Dr. Arun Garg. I would want to invite Abhishek, who is a co-founder and a co-owner of DocOPD, again a BITian, one amongst us, to talk a little bit about what they do and about Dr. Arun Garg, and introduce Dr. Arun Garg and his team, Mr. Anshul. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you, Ayush. It is our privilege that we are part of this webinar. DocOPD is trying to help people with the help of all the telemedicine facilities, RT-PCR during the most needed at the time of pandemic, and we have done remarkable work during the pandemic season, both times in 2020 and 2021 also. We are extending our reach through Bitosa to all the BITians, and our work towards this section is very important, as the current situation is very, very serious, and we want that DocOPD should extend our services, and it will reach to maximum people. So I am inviting, Ansul, who is our, partner and in Bitosa, in DocOPD. He is going to take you about DocOPD, and then after the, Dr. Sir. So Ansul, over to you.
Thank you, Abhishek. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be a part of this webinar. And like Abhishek was mentioning about DocOPD, we are really proud to be, working with Bitosa to extend our services to all the BITNs across the world. So without taking much of your time, I would like to introduce Dr. Arun Garg, who's an ENT surgeon and who's associated with us and also is practicing at Fortis Hospital in Delhi. Over to you, doctor.
Yeah. Whatever the COVID period is going on, which is pandemic, you know very well. And this COVID period is definitely has got a lot of fatality rate this year, especially as compared to the last year. And whatever the mismanagement, definitely would like to say the mismanagement regarding the COVID patients, especially for the self-use medication, or you could say the misuse of medications. Misuse of medications. Ultimately, they lead to the so many complications of the post-COVID consequences, or you can say the post-COVID complications. Especially if patient is having the high dose of steroid therapy, self-medication, unnecessarily taking the medication despite whether the patient has got COVID positive or COVID negative, or you can say due to the panic or the phobia of the COVID basically. Most of the patient takes the self-medication, ultimately they develop the post-COVID complication in terms of like you can say the fungal infection and a lot of peripheral vascular disease, acute myocardial ischemia if patient is already pre-existing some cardiac events, or if patient is having uncontrolled diabetes mellitus, this patient leads to the mucormycosis, you can say in another word the what you call the black fungus, or if patient is having already lung compromise like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, they permanently for last couple of months, for last 2 to 3 months, they are still on oxygen, and before that they were not on oxygen. So this pandemic, whatever the scenario is going on, really it's very harmful because still the peoples are not understanding what is the COVID basically. They are roaming here and there without wearing the mask, without any social distance, or without any hand sanitizer. So this is basically a very big role in preventing basically the COVID infection. Mr. Abhishek, you want to ask anything? Hello.
So, doctor, this is Ayush,
Yeah,
right?
please,
So, with your experience, right, and I'm sure with your association with Fortis, you would be facing a lot of, you would be having a lot of people coming in, right, with post-COVID symptoms.
Yeah.
So, would you like to tell us about what kind of post-COVID symptoms we should watch out for, A, and in case, what is the kind of post-COVID care that we should look at so that we are safe and we do not invite post-COVID complications. So if you could just throw a little light on that, doctor.
Yeah, definitely. First of all, would like to say the post-COVID, basically the complication, or you can say the post-COVID symptoms, whatever we are facing right now. If suppose patient has got COVID positive in the month of April, whatever we are facing after 3 to 4 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks after COVID positive, we are the facing problem like most of the patients complain of the facial pain. Basically, you can say the cheek pain, you can say the tooth pain, you can say the jaw pain. Sometimes the pain is in the headache region, sometimes pain in the orbit region. Most of the patients complaining of the nasal blockage. Sometimes patients complain of pain in the calf muscle. Pain in the calf muscle, basically, what we call is this calf muscle. And apart from that, most of the patient is feeling some breathlessness still. And apart from that, which is very, very important, post-COVID patients are having the temperature still the 99 degrees Fahrenheit, which they have recorded in their thermometer. Temperature is definitely a very big complication of post-COVID patients. First. Second thing is the cough pain. Third thing is the facial pain, which we are facing in daily routine activities. Fourth thing, most of the patients feel the dry persistent cough, basically, dry persistent cough. And fifth, most of the patients are still feeling some breathlessness. Suppose if they are walking 5 to 6 steps, they feel very fragile, weak. And apart from that, patients are feeling very weakness. Weakness is very good. I mean, in most COVID, in fact, we are facing such type of problem. So whatever the post-COVID care is concerned, if patient is having uncontrolled diabetes, this diabetes status has to be under control. Whatever the blood sugars are there, it has to be less than 200 after COVID, at least 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. And definitely would like to ask the patient, please don't misuse the drug of steroid therapy, which is basically the culprit of the fungal infection is provocative. And if, yeah, sir, Ayush sir, you want to tell something, sir? Okay. And this post-COVID care, though, definitely I would like to say the hydration must be adequate for the patients. Hydration must be adequate. If patient is having underlying any pre-existing illness like any diabetes mellitus, any cardiovascular disease, any lung disease, any renal disease, any heart disease, whatever they are taking the medication, that has to be under control, and that medication has to be under some good qualified doctor with proper supervision. This is the basically the post-COVID care. And antibiotic, steroid therapy, please don't misuse, don't misuse, don't misuse. And one more thing, I want to clarify that post-COVID patient, still I am facing most of the patients complain of, doctor, I am having the temperature of 99 or something like that when I record through my thermometer. As per our literature says, in post-COVID patients, this thermometer definitely will get rises 1 degree if you record from your thermometer, and it rises till your 90 days after post-COVID. Whatever our thermoregulatory system, which control basically the hypothalamus system, it takes at least 90 days to get back. It reverts basically. It takes definitely, it takes definitely 90 days to get it revert. If patient is having 99-degree temperature, it doesn't mean that patient needs to take any antibiotic medication in the form of PCM or something like that. So definitely would like to say, please don't take any medication. Whatever the important is there, hydration must be adequate. Just do very mild exercise. Don't do the vigorous exercise. Definitely vigorous exercise ultimately impact on the cardiovascular system. It will add untoward effects on your bronchopulmonary system basically. And would like to say patient needs to take high protein, high calorie diet in the form of pulses, in the form of salads. That's all.
Thank you, doctor.
Anshul?
So, doctor, thank you for that. Remaining on the same topic, we've received the first question where one of the viewers is asking, one of their family members have just come out of COVID complications, and they want to know what is the good time to start physical activities like walking and running. And the age of the patient is between 35 to 40 years.
35. If patient doesn't have any underlying comorbidities like don't have any diabetes, don't have any blood pressure, any thyroid or any cardiovascular or any renal disease basically. So definitely once after the COVID, after 3 to 4 weeks, they should start some very mild exercise only. Mild exercise. It doesn't, it should not like a brisk exercise. Brisk exercise means sweating should be there. It's a very mild exercise. After 3 to 4 weeks after recovery.
Thank you,
along
doctor.
with along with good hydration, with multivitamin preparation, with high protein, high calorie diet.
Thank you, doctor. While we wait for more questions, we've all heard across the world, there's a lot of news about vaccinations and the importance of getting vaccinated. And with the different vaccinations now available across the world, we would really appreciate if you could throw some light on why should one get vaccinated.
Yeah, definitely all vaccines are equally effective, whether it is Covishield, Covaxin, or Sputnik. All vaccines are definitely equally effective, but make sure person should get two vaccine. Reason being because after getting the vaccination, definitely if the COVID symptoms are there, definitely it will be of mild type of variety. I mean, it will be on only the grade 1 type of variety. It will not go on grade 3, grade 4. Grade 1 means that definitely patient will having very mild symptoms in terms of like cough, cold, congestion, and they could treat at home only. Grade 3, grade 4 means they need some ICU admission, they need some oxygen plus ventilation. The advantage of putting the 2 dose of vaccination.
Thank you, doctor. We have another question from one of the viewers who's asking that one of their relatives has all the symptoms of COVID, but they have received a negative report on the RT-PCR test. So is it advisable for them to go for the vaccination?
Yeah, actually RT-PCR sometimes if depends on the viral load. Sometimes if the viral load is very low, most of the patient is having definitely the RT-PCR negative. A viral load means if this CT report says more than 25, 26. In some of the patient, we get the negative report if viral load is very less. So definitely they should get vaccinated.
Doctor, one more question.
Yeah.
We have been hearing a lot of people, as you said, misuse of over-the-counter medicines. We've been hearing a lot of people who are popping up these multivites and especially zinc tablets. Are these useful? Do they have any side effects? Should one have them or not have them? Who should have them? Could you throw some light on that?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, zinc is basically it comes under the free radical basically. Actually, most of the patients, they are taking the zinc medication 50 milligram 2 times in a day. But depends on the type of personality and depends on individual to individual. If patient is having some underlying comorbidity, like patient is having some cardiac disorder or any renal disorder, definitely will say patient needs to take at least 50 milligram once daily. If they will take more than that, definitely it will get harm to the patient in the form of, because whatever we are consuming the zinc, it will not excrete through the body. And if patient is already having some compromise the organs in terms of like any renal injury, any renal failure or any myocardial injury or any COPD patients, they doesn't allow to excrete the proper zinc. So definitely patient will get harm in such type of situation, but depends on patient to patient.
Thank you, doctor. One more person has posed up a question. I'll read out the question for him. He wants to know how long is a person protected after first dose of vaccine?
Okay. Actually, whatever the our guidelines are saying as per the ICMR or WHO guidelines, whatever, because I got vaccinated in the month of January when they have started the Covishield. I got vaccinated first dose in the month of January on 26th of January, and second good dose I got vaccinated in the 27th of February. Earlier, the ICMR report says whatever there should be a gap of at least 4 to 6 weeks. But now in the April month, they says it comes, there should be a gap of at least 6 to 8 weeks. But after 10th or 15th May, they are saying between the gap of the dose, it should be 12 to 16 weeks as per our government guidelines. Now you are saying, suppose if one gets vaccinated, so definitely the antibodies get developed after 2 to 3 weeks. Not immediately, but it depends on whatever we are getting the antibody. It depends on the type of person, depends on individual to individual. It depends on all these things. If patient is having some silent disorders, so definitely if patient is a patient, I mean silent disease, patient is asymptomatic. Patient doesn't know anything. So definitely it will take some time rather than in a normal healthy individual.
I think Pradeep sir has some question. Pradeep sir, can you just ask your question, please?
Vishnu, request you to unmute Pradeep sir.
I've also tried unmuting him. He has to accept the unmute request.
Okay, meanwhile, when he's coming back, Dr. Saab, one question I have for the patient. I mean, in during the COVID or after COVID, lots of patient has some ENT related issues. How do they recognize that they are having any problem, or is there any alarming symptoms that patient needs to care about or to talk about? Can you please highlight those points?
Yeah, definitely. If patient is basically the post-COVID patients, if patient complaining of like facial pain, if they are complaining of some like nose block, if patient is having some redness in the eye, patient is having some retroorbital headache, retroorbital headache, if patient has got some blanch or some blackening over the palate, so these are the alarming signs. So definitely we'll ask the patient to get some MRI with contrast to get paranasal sinus, orbit, brain, and basically the facial bone. If this report says clinically we have diagnosed that patient is having some complication or consequences of the post-COVID, but we need to have some documentary evidence, documentary proof to prove anything. So we'll ask the patient to get MRI paranasal sinus, we ask the patient to get MRI orbit, MRI brain, and MRI jaw and facial bone. If we find some positive findings, suppose, and if patient have got some nasal blockage, we take the biopsy from there, send for histopathological examination and culture sensitivity and KOH smear. If reports comes the mucormycosis, so definitely we'll start the treatment. It depends on the extent of disease. If the disease is too much, so definitely we ask the patient to get the debridement of all the disease through the nose. It's basically the endoscopic debridement of nose and paranasal sinus. And after that, we start the patient to amphotericin B or any antifungal drug. Whatever the amphotericin B is basically the drug of choice in case of mucormycosis.
Right. Thank you, doctor.
Gigi.
Yeah, one more question I am having for common, question, which is related to saving, covering the, mouth with the mask. So we are covering mouth and nose, but is there anything, sir, related with eyes, or we have to cover eyes or protect eyes also during the COVID spread or something? What do you suggest, sir?
So definitely it's better to put some specs, sir. Even if patient doesn't have any refractive error, it's better to put some normal glass.
So is this contagious through eyes as well?
No. Mucormycosis or this fungal infection is not contagious at all. Not contagious at all.
So then by covering eyes or mouth or nose, it's just like reducing the effect or the damage.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I have one more question from sorry, Abhishek, please go on.
Please go ahead, Nivedita, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was reading one of the questions from the audience, which said that, what precautions should one take post mild COVID recovery? How to check lung health? And one of their batchmates has recently recovered. His RT-PCR test was 30 plus.
Okay, it's better to check basically through the spirometry. Spirometry is like a normal test in which we just ask the patient to blow the balls basically. I think you are aware to this spirometry test, isn't it or not?
Yeah, something that you blow out then
just blow. Or if you don't know, or patient doesn't know about the spirometry test, we ask the patient just to put the candle at least 1 feet distance and just blow out the. So even this is a roughly assessment to check whether this chest is okay or not.
Let's see. And sir, I have another question from Ankur Singh Chauhan. He says that he was a cancer survivor, and after the treatment, he was always having a problem which is nose related. Please suggest what he can do and to overcome it.
Okay, first of all, we need to know what type of cancer he's getting, what type of chemotherapy he's getting, what type of radiation therapy, what type of he has already undergone the surgery. Basically, we need to take the history from the patients properly. Could be the possibility of whatever the nose problem is there. It could be because of the radiation induced, or you can say the chemotherapeutic adverse effect, you can say. Or already, if patient is having already pre-existing any sinus element. So patient history is very, very important.
I think he has responded saying it was blood cancer.
Blood cancer, there are so many type of blood cancer. Suppose if he has got any AML or any ALL, then in AML, ALL, what type, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, what type of chemotherapeutic agent he is getting. So it depends on that basically. Could be the possibility of whatever the chemotherapeutic agent, its adverse effect, or before getting the chemotherapeutic agent, he was a known case of any sinus element. That's basically trigger after taking the chemotherapeutic agent. Could be the possibility.
Sir, are there any precautions that you can suggest to him that he should be taking, or care measures?
Care measures definitely will, as far as the nose is concerned, definitely will ask the patient, we recommend the patient to put some saline drops. Basically, clustering should not be there. And repeated this betadine gargling, that's definitely will take care of. I mean, the ear, nose, throat, basically hygiene has to be there.
So, Dr. Saab, there are some questions, very common questions coming up, and this is one of my question also. What is the exact difference that we have to maintain after the COVID negative and the vaccination? And some people also have, other queries which is related to this. Is they had taken the first vaccine, let's say on 4th, and they got COVID after 10 days. What is the time gap of taking the next dose? So, can you suggest what are the best?
Whatever our ICMR, WHO, they are not 100% sure. What should be the difference between, suppose if patient has got first dose and after 1 week or 2 weeks, so patient got COVID positive, and after how many days he needs to take the second dose. In fact, our ICMR and this WHO people, they are saying after this, once you get the COVID positive, most of this study says you don't need to get second dose once you already got the infected with the COVID, because you already got the antibodies.
Okay.
You already got the antibodies.
Yeah. So one of important questions for you, sir. The question is: some COVID patients reports hearing loss after COVID. Is it myth or fact?
No, it is 100% true, because I seen at least 6 patients till now in my ENT practice for last 2 months. Patients says the only symptom is hearing loss, which was sudden hearing loss. Means they were hearing better 48 hours before, 72 hours. Once they get infected, patient doesn't have any problem, only the hearing loss is there. When we ask the patient to get hearing screening test, so definitely it's a sudden sensory neural hearing loss, which basically due to the viral infection. And we asked the patient to get RT-PCR, it was positive. It was positive.
Yeah, so this is mostly for the aged people, or for young people?
It's not aged. In fact, I saw at least 5 to 6 patients. They were categorized between 35 to 55 year of age. And again, we asked the patient to take high dose of steroid therapy, high dose of this steroid, along with intratympanic injection with hyperbaric oxygen therapy in such type of situation.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you, Abhishek. Doctor, I want to give the access to Arun Singh Chauhan. This is regarding the same, the blood cancer patient. I think he has more to share about his case.
Yeah.
Vishnu, can you please unmute him for him to pose his question directly? Thank you, Vishnu.
Ma'am, I think he has dropped from the meeting. Maybe he has some network issues.
I see.
Yes, we carry ahead.
Yep. So let's carry on with the next question. We have a question from Mr. Anupam Srivastava. He is asking if holding breath exercise circulated on social media that is really helpful to check the lung health. And if yes, then what is the optimal duration for such exercise?
Yeah, definitely. This breath holding spell is definitely another as a roughly assessment to check whether the lungs are okay or not. But definitely we'll ask the patient to hold the breath holding spell at least for 45 to 60 seconds, basically.
Thank you, doctor. Another question that we have is about a myth, and Neha wants to confirm if COVID patients reporting hearing loss, is that a fact or a myth? And should one be scared of such?
So definitely no, it's not a myth. Definitely we have already told you that we have already seen at least 5 to 6 patients in the last 2 months. They were basically the only symptoms were the hearing loss. And we asked the patient to get RT-PCR, it was positive. Just is say shockable things basically. And again, we start the patient antiviral therapy, high dose of steroid therapy, basically the intratympanic injection, and there's some like neurotropic vitamins basically. It's
So, doctor,
basically the viremia.
all this is repairable. So when I say repairable, there are again myths about people having pink toes after the infection or losing the taste of the tongue or maybe smell.
Yeah.
Is hearing loss also something that is repairable after a certain period
Yeah,
of time?
definitely. Yeah, this hearing loss repairable, it's especially depends on when the patients come to the doctor and when the doctor has started the treatment. I mean, the duration is very important. When the patient seeks to the, in fact, and the doctor has started the treatment. I mean, the duration is very important. If the duration you have started already your treatment, 60 to 70% cases, we get 80 to 85% recovery in sudden sensory neural hearing loss. Especially if you have started the high dose of steroid therapy, you have started the intratympanic injection into the ear and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is very, very important role in sudden sensory neural hearing loss. And apart from that, whatever you are asking me basically the loss of a smell, basically what we call is the anosmia and dysgeusia, basically the altered taste, which is basically is most of the patient. In fact, I must say in 25 to 35 patients, they complain only and only the symptoms of loss of smell and loss of taste. Definitely it
Is this alarming or is it
no,
just?
it's not. No, it's not alarming. Means if patient has got only the anosmia and dysgeusia, means patient is very, very lucky in terms of whatever the virus enter inside the nose, it directly affects into the olfactory tract, or which further leads to the anosmia and altered taste. And patient is luckily in terms of because this virus doesn't go beyond down. I mean, doesn't go into the lung, it doesn't go into the GIT. Got it, man? And definitely it takes at least 12 to 16 weeks to get it revert. I mean, this altered sense, altered taste, and this dysgeusia basically.
Thank you, doctor. Also, I was wondering, I have read about it that, a lot of people had pink toes after contracting, like post-COVID. Pink toes. So is this something which is like related to age or the intensity of infection? That probably some people it's the loss of taste, some people it's a pink toe, for some people it's a facial pain. Like what is this? Why is it varying post-COVID symptom?
Yeah, definitely facial pain. Definitely, I heard a lot of patients from the patients after post-COVID, but I'm listening first time as this pink toes basically. Pink toes basically. I'm listening
This
first time.
pink toes was more in Southeast Asia that I read about, not in India.
It could be a different variant. Truly speaking, I didn't see a single patient In fact, I didn't, read in the news, not in media, not in magazine, truly speaking, as the pink toes are concerned. Definitely, post-COVID patient is having the facial pain, this retroorbital pain, this redness into the eye, pain in the jaw, pain in the tooth, pain in the palate region. It's there, but truly speaking, could be the different variant.
Maybe so. So we have one more question from Prince, and he wants to understand the precautions that should be taken between first and the second dose of vaccine.
No, as far as there should not be any precautions, whatever the patient is having the normal dietary, normal dietary hydration should be adequate, normal dietary, whatever we are taking this diet, normal healthy diet. There should not be any like precautions between first dose and second dose.
So there is another question from Ravi, and he is narrating his experience where he says that he took Covaxin first dose on 4th of April and had COVID on 19th April. New guidelines says that the second dose 90 days after recovery. He didn't have fever after 3 days. So should he assume that he has recovered after 14 days? Since as per ICMR guideline,
No.
he hasn't taken the second test, RT-PCR
If he has
test.
got some doubt, if he has got, could be the possibility he might be having some very mild symptoms. Very mild symptom. If again patient has got some doubt, it's better to get some RT-PCR. RT-PCR. In mild cases, most of the patients are having RT-PCR positive.
So there is some appreciation from Neeraj Sharan and also a question. This question is from Abhineet, and he is asking that his father came back from hospital post-COVID about 35 days ago. He has a history of smoking and snophilia. Despite 35 days, his recovery is pretty slow and he produces a lot of cough. Every 2 to 3 days, he requires a Forcot to ease breathing or oxygen support for a few hours to ease low oxygen levels.
Yeah.
What level of recovery can we expect, and
Yeah.
what can be required time? Like, what is the time frame that they should look at?
Actually, very difficult to predict exact duration because already his lung was compromised. As far as you already told that he has got the eosinophilia, pulmonary eosinophilia. It means the lung was already compromised. So definitely this COVID, basically it causes the vasculitis in the lungs region. If you, I don't know whether you understand the means of vasculitis. It is basically the inflammation. It causes basically the whatever the blood flow it's going on, it gets jeopardized further down. Basically, it causes the this COVID infection causes the vasculitis. If patient is already that organ is compromised, and post-COVID, definitely he needs to have nebulization. He needs to have any spacer. He needs to have this inhaler. And definitely he should be on intranasal oxygen. You can say the oxygen through the nasal prong. Depends on how much he needs to take, 2 liter, 3 liter, 4 liter, 5 liter, depends on person to person. And whatever his CT chest score says, basically. CT chest, the high resolution CT chest score says, it was 18 out of 25 or whatever it was. It depends on patient to patient.
So Dr. Saab, in this, I have one specific question. Sometimes we have seen, as we discussed, RT-PCR is not detected, and because it is taken from nasal swab, right? So what does happen? The virus is not inside the nasal, or virus is inside directly into the lungs or something. So can you just brief people who can understand why this RT comes negative?
Yeah, basically the virus is definitely in the nose and the nasopharynx, and other in the oral cavity and oropharynx, basically. And initially, whatever the technician, they were not so expert in taking the swab, basically. Suppose they took the swab, they basically insert this swab and just take the superficially. So ultimately it will come negative. Suppose in the same condition come in the oral cavity. Suppose put the swab and just take only the superficially. We need to take basically the deep swab. Deep swab means once you cross the middle turbinate, there are 3 turbinates inside the nose on each side of our nasal cavity, inferior, middle, and superior. you need to cross the middle turbinate, means you reach the upper level. Just take the swab. The same condition apply over here. Once you reach the oropharynx portion start from just back part of the tongue. Back part of the tongue means what we call is the behind the base of tongue. If you take the sample from the outer aspect of tongue, means only the anterior 2/3 of tongue, so definitely the swab will come negative. So depends on the technicians how much they are skilled to take the swabs basically.
Yeah, but virus is still there in the nasal
Yeah,
swab.
definitely. Virus basically, it's basically in the nose, nasopharynx, oral cavity, and oropharynx. And this virus stay only in two places, basically nasopharynx and oropharynx.
One more question coming to you, sir, from Arun Kumarji. His mother is recovered 20 days ago, and she has not any medical problem, but her SpO2 level is fluctuating. So it's coming between 91 to 93, and sometimes it's also go above to 95. Is there any concern, serious concern that Arun Kumarji needs to take?
Okay, nothing to worry. If his mother is getting saturation 90 degree without oxygen, nothing to worry. So definitely he needs to take some steam inhalation. We'll ask her to take some nebulize. So definitely this nebulize will increase her saturation. We'll ask her to put her on basically in the prone posture. And we ask her to do the lung tapping. Basically it increases the saturation.
One more question coming up, sir. The question is from Neha ma'am. She is asking, my sister-in-law recovered from COVID 1 month back and 33 years age, having some thyroid medicine of 100 mg. So she is asking, recently her BP stays higher and sugar HbA1c is also 6.6, right?
Yeah.
So is it post-COVID effect or it's a normal?
Yeah, definitely. This is the post-COVID. Definitely, BP will get fluctuate, blood sugar will fluctuate. It will remain stay after 90 days. And before that, they need to check her blood pressure at least once or twice in a week. I will not say daily need to check the blood pressure or this blood sugar. At least once or twice in a week, basically. And it has to be there after post-COVID. If patient doesn't have any underlying comorbidity, it's basically the consequences of the post-COVID, you can say.
Right. And one more question, sir, regarding the test. Some people develop test immediately, some takes time. So can you just suggest what is the general time range or something where people can care about, like this will take that much of time to recover the test?
Yeah, basically it takes basically the patient to patient. Is basically the patient to patient. It depends on individual to individual. If patient is having some underlying disease, and all these things depends on patient to patient. We'll see only.
Thank you. Is there any question?
Anupam Srivastav has posed this question that what are the mandatory tests one needs to do post-COVID recovery, and a single test is fine, or whether they have to repeat. So would you like to throw some light on this?
Single test depends on basically what is the age of the patient. If patient is elderly, definitely will ask the patient to check the blood sugar, which is very, very important after post-COVID patients.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank
you. So also one more thing. Sorry, not actually to doctor. I wanted to check with Vishnu. Has Ankur joined back?
No, ma'am. He's not on the call.
Vishnu, you had a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So the question was, is it possible in any scenario that a person has fever for say around 2 months and the fever is mild and the COVID test is negative, even the antigen tests are negative? Antigen or antibody tests. Both are negative.
Actually, whatever the tests are there, the this RT-PCR was negative and this antigen test was negative. And you mean to say the COVID markers were positive? You mean to say that?
No, there were no other markers, just a mild fever below 100 degrees
That-
for around 2 months.
Yeah, definitely, which I already told you, whatever the post-COVID fever, it rises, it will be there, I think, till 99.2, 99.3 up to 90 days, which I already explained to you. Whatever our thermoregulatory mechanism is there, it takes 90 days to get back it to revert.
So my question here is, if COVID is negative, it's not about post-COVID. So is it possible?
It's possible. If fever is persisting beyond 3 months, so definitely this fever, the cause of fever has to be investigated basically.
Okay, thank you.
Because this COVID along with comes with the typhoids are also there, you know.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
Yeah, we have a question from Ayush Agrawal. Sorry, sir. Sorry for having so many questions back to back, but that our audience is having a lot to speak to you. And that's why we are keeping you not giving you a breather. But here's a question from Ayush Agrawal, where he is wanting to talk about colors. We have black, white, and a single case of yellow fungus as post-COVID. So are they just same complication with different names, or are they different?
Okay, as such, there is no like any yellow fungus or any white fungus. The only and only black fungus is there. What we call in our medical terminology is basically the mucormycosis, or you can say the rhizopus basically. As such, there is no white fungus. If suppose white fungus is there, they are the normal commensal in your nose and oral cavity like Candida albicans. What basically the people are saying, the white fungus basically.
I see, doctor. Doctor, this is the last question. I think for the rest of the questions, maybe we can keep in touch with you and I can post to you later this. This question is from Rahul Khatri, and he wants to understand that his father has recovered from COVID 6 months back, but is still complaining about loss of sense of taste. So what is the duration, that he should watch out these symptoms for, and when should he expect recovery of this?
Yeah, actually, whatever the loss of a smell and taste, very difficult to predict the exact duration when they will come back. I mean, in terms of like duration, very difficult. Sometimes it takes 12 weeks, sometimes it takes 16 weeks, and whatever our ICMR guideline says, more than 6 weeks to 6 months, basically. 6 weeks to 6 months.
But it is something that is repairable. It cannot be
definitely it's
condition.
repairable. Definitely it's a repairable, definitely. But
Hope it has answered your question, Rahul. Thank you so much, doctor. Thank you so much on behalf of all the questions that
Thank
were
you, sir.
asked by our audience. I appreciate your time. Any more questions from anyone?
Let's close this.
Are there any more? Abhishek?
No, ma'am. From my side, there is no question.
Great. Then in that case, I would like to thank you, Dr. Anurag Garg, for joining us on our COVID leave session and giving the tips for post-COVID care. Thank you, Abhishek and DocOPD team, for being a part of our initiative to support the greater BIT family. I thank all the BIT members that were behind the screen and involved in making this event a success, which in terms is reaching a greater audience and being helpful. We will continue to bring in more events like today, targeted towards COVID in the form of COVID. And our regular events will resume post-COVID, which hope that ends soon. My last and most important thanks to all community members and participants for positively encouraging us to conduct these events. to be a part of our team or initiative, please click to bitosaglobal.org. Thank you. Have a good night. Stay safe and stay well. And if you need anything, we are always there for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you,
doctor.
everybody.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye, everyone. Thanks a lot.
So much. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.